Yeah, that blew up. I didn't even put that much effort into it. It only took about 1 minute to edit. Why did it get so many views? But, yeah, regardless, hi, it's Toast. And I thought today we could talk about serial killers. Well, more accurately, Pokemon who were a little bit too silly in OU and had to get banned to Ubers. These Pokemon are always very interesting to me, as for the most part, they're basically banished immediately at the start of a generation or tier's existence. So, who are these war criminals whose crimes were so heinous that they had to be banished to Ubers? Well, there's 9. Yeah, the Paldean Hood doesn't fuck around. It should technically be 10, however, though I'm somehow in the minority that Walk and Wake is stupid and should have been banned. But I mean, at least it's one less to talk about. So anyways, let's look over the war criminals of the Scarlet and Violet OU ban list. Houndstone is a very weird case amongst the other banned Pokemon, because it's actually really bad. Like, the actual Pokemon should be an NU, especially at a glance of its stats, but there is one redeeming factor that keeps Houndstone usable in higher tiers, and is the only reason it's feared as much as it is. Last Respects. Last Respects is a 50 base power move that increases its damage by 50 for every teammate who's fainted. And now you're probably seeing why Houndstone was a problem. Basically, you had 2 sets, which was Sand and Scarf. And both did the same thing, which is contribute absolutely nothing to your team until they all died, so you could clean everything up if your 300 base power stab move. Needless to say, Houndstone was comically overpowered in that regard, and with that you may think it would be even better in Ubers, or maybe even be banned into AG. But no, not really. It's actually really bad in Ubers, being ranked at C+ as of December 2022, which granted, doesn't sound too bad, but then you have to remember Scarf isn't good in Ubers because basically everything under the sun outspeeds you, even with Scarf, so you have to run Sand. And let's just say Sand is considered even worse. Tyranitar is barely C-, and Hippowdon is just mid-C tier. So I mean, you could run Houndstone Sand, but you're probably just going to lose to a player that knows what they're doing. Cyclizar is once again another low-tier Pokemon, saved by a singular move in its arsenal, this time being Shed Tail, which unlike Last Respects, is an actually balanced move as Earthworm also has it and is comfortably seen in OU. But for those who don't know, Shed Tail will cut your HP in half in return for passing a substitute to your teammate, and it is relatively easy to deal with as strong neutral hits can break the sub on switch, or predicted Whirlwind from Tinglu can also force the opponent out, hence destroying the sub. But if that's the case, what made it so broken on Cyclizar? Simply put it, the fact that it had a really good speed stat alongside Regenerator, allowing it to get more than 1 or 2 subs off a game compared to Earthworm. Usually getting 3 or 4 thanks to the healing of Regenerator and Citrus Berry if you ran that item. These two alone what solidified it as a huge nuisance that could instantly end games because of screen support from Grimmsnarl, as the numerous Pokemon in the tier who only needed 1 or 2 turns to end a game. Example being Swords Dance Chien-Pao or Extreme Killer Dragonite. The insane ability of it being able to enable these threats is the main reason Cyclizar got banned. But how is it in Ubers? It's mid as hell, unfortunately. It's usable, but usually not worth it, as you would rather just hit the enemy, and the speed tiers are much higher in general, once again forcing you into Scarf similar to Houndstone. It's very similar to Houndstone in the fact that once Pokemon Home support is added, it will probably be fine in OU again. But for now, Cyclizar remains a shell of its former self, doing the same hyper-offensive enabling it did in OU, but slightly worse. Espathra is probably the most interesting Pokemon I'm covering today, as its history throughout the Smogon Tyrannodrome is incredibly interesting. Well, at least to me. Starting out in OU when Scarlet and Violet first came out, then dropping to UU, becoming UUBL, then it re-rose to OU, and finally got banned to Ubers. Now, on paper, Espathra seems perfectly fine and honestly not even that good, at least in OU, as in UU it was way too good, as I mentioned earlier, and became UUBL. But eventually people realized what Espathra's push was that made it so good. Terra Fighting, which not only allowed it to hit King Gambit, but also set up one of the dark types thanks to its passable bulk with investment and speed boost. But Terra Fighting wasn't the only factor, as its main source of damage and the main reason it got banned in 2 separate tiers was the combination of speed boost, Calm Mind, and store power. And at first, people thought it was manageable because of the dark types just didn't care about without it or Dazzle and Gleam, especially Kingambit. But then you slapped Terra Fire on it and it basically became unstoppable after it accumulated enough boosts. And as for Ubers, it's fine. Being in the B tier alongside Pokemon like Dondozo, Walk and Wake, and a bunch of other OU mons that are doing fine in Ubers. Which is very cool, because the Lady Gaga bird has a pretty cool combo going on, so it's nice to see it being usable in Ubers. But now, we reach a point of no return, as every Pokemon from this point forward is not only good in Ubers, but in some cases even meta-defining. So let's look at the next 6 to see the atrocities they committed.
Annihilape marks a turning point out of the OU banned Pokemon, as it's the first one to be legitimately viable, not just a gimmick or somewhat usable with proper team support, but a legitimate threat that needs to be accounted for when team building. In fact, Annihilape's main boom and the reason it's banned is Rage Fist, which is a reverse clone of Last Respects, where it's a 50 base power move that increases in damage every time you're hit by a physical or special move instead of for every fainted ally. Now, due to this and the fact that to play the game you have to hit the opponent with attacks, you would think the damage increase would, maybe, be a 10 to 20 damage boost that would cap out at 150 base power. But nope. It's an exact clone of Last Respects, increasing in base power by 50 every time you're hit, capping out at 300 base power. Think you can stall the main set of Bulk Up Rage Fist? Nope, you just get taunted and set up on. Try to wall it with an unaware mon like Terraberry, Skeldurge, or Dondozo. While they may work for 1 to 2 turns, unfortunately Unaware doesn't ignore a move's base power, meaning that eventually they'll get cleaved by Rage Fist regardless of Annihilape's boost. The Taunt Bulk Up set isn't even its only set, as you can also run a Scarf set or Suicide Bleed set. However, both of these aren't as good as Bulk Up and aren't listed on the Smogon analysis. The main reason Annihilape is kept in check is the fact a lot of the top tiers just one-shot it with a special attack, or in Iron Bundle's case can encore it into Taunt or Bulk Up and have its teammates retake momentum from it. Gee. So overall, it's a very formidable mon that, while it still has issues, is the first Ubers mon here that's actually really scary when left unchecked, especially if not prepared for.
Palafin, on the surface, looks like a normal, upstanding citizen who pays his taxes and supports his family. You know, has a respectable job and a lot of friends who like him. But unfortunately, this isn't the case, as upon switching out thanks to its ability 0 to Hero, it becomes the vigilante Palafin hero. And unlike Batman, Palafin can't tell the difference between a hostage and a criminal, thus being banned from OU because of its bulk up set and gargantuan attack stat of 160. So what does it do with that attack stat in Ubers? It should be pretty obvious it hits hard. Being able to run a band set or a bulk up set, it is very deadly and terrifying. Band is mostly used to revenge kill threats like Flutter Mane and hit ground type Pokemon really hard to help out one of its teammates Miraidon, like Clodsire, Iron Treads, and Tinglu. The bulk up set is basically a clone of Annihilape's bulk up set, with the trade-off being instead of having perfect coverage and a move that gets stupid strong over time, instead you get a 60 base power priority move to kill anything that dares outspeed you, and immediate power, because you know 160 attack. However, though, the bulk up set is less slappable on teams due to its huge weakness to the top tiers of Ubers, Koraidon and Miraidon, meaning the bulk up set can really only fit on more defensive team styles, which is a damn shame. Chien-Pao, if I'm correct, was one of the last "this is blatantly overpowered, god I can't wait for it to get banned" Pokemon to get banned from OU. Now, Chien-Pao's main thing is to hit really, really hard, and that hit even harder thanks to its ability Sword of Ruin, which lowers the opponent's defense by 25%. which is huge because it's already good attack stat, gets a free 25% boost, and then you can boost it even further beyond with Sword Stance. Needless to say, despite its frailty, Chien-Pao is very strong, and thanks to its ice typing, is able to speed tie Koraidon and Miraidon for a clean one-hit KO, unless they're running Scarf. However, though, both can easily KO it back, so it's risky to go for the one-hit KO with an Icicle Crash, making the main way of killing them Ice Shard, which after a single Sword Stance becomes a one-hit KO instead of a two-hit KO. Its main thing though is hit really hard obviously, and cleave the opponent's whether that be through band, Sword Stance, or just a all-out attacker set with heavy duty boots. Imagine this, a beast of chronic waste, melting everything in its path with no remorse, spamming Dark Pulse and Fire Stabs with no care as to who they hit, as regardless of who has to face a giraffe, they will be incinerated in mere moments. Imagine what gigantic, otherworldly creature supports this stat spread, and then you realize, it's this dumbass. This is Chi-Yu, whose main thing in Ubers is being a special nuke due to its effective 190 special attack thanks to Beads of Ruin. For context, Chien-Pao, due to Swords of Ruin, has an effective attack stat of 170, making Chi-Yu have the highest offensive stat out of any Pokemon ever. Like, the next closest special attack stat from a non-Mega Pokemon comes from Deoxys attack at 180, and even though Mega Mewtwo Y has a special attack of 94, I don't care. It doesn't exist anymore. So anyways, Chi-Yu, just like Chien-Pao, is basically just supposed to hit the opponent really hard, either with Choice Specs or Nasty Plot. However, though, it also has a Choice Scarf set, which can be used to catch certain Pokemon off guard. The main difference between Specs and Nasty Plot, though, is having more immediate power, while Nasty Plot can help you cleave through Pokemon that you would otherwise need Terra Fairy for, like Blissey and Tinglu. So overall, not much to say. Hits really hard, threatens a lot of stuff hard, especially if Sticky Webs are up, and is easily one of the best wall breakers in Ubers. Well, we're almost there, and surprisingly, one of the best Uber Pokemon is Delibird. Well, the cooler Delibird. Iron Bundle's main thing in Ubers is, once again, being another special attacker who hits a lot of stuff hard. However, though, unlike Chi-Yu, Iron Bundle differentiates itself thanks to its disruption tools. Now, granted, it could be lame and run a spec set, which is perfectly valid, as it does give you a clean one-hit KO on Koraidon and uninvested Miraidon, and unlike Chien-Pao, it actually outspeeds non-Scarf variants of the two by a single speed point. However though, Heavy Duty Boots, its main set, is what I consider better as it runs the same moves as its spec set, with one major difference. Over Flip Turn, you can run Taunt or Encore, both serving the purpose of disrupting the opponent attempting to outstall you or set up on you. Now, how did it get banned from OU? Simple. Its speed stat combined with perfect coverage thanks to Freeze Dry, which also makes it really good in Ubers as a solid wall breaker and nice disruptor to stop the opponent from doing setup shenanigans. Flutter Mane is the end of the tunnel. Not just of this video, but of competitive Ubers, who many consider the third best Pokemon in the tier, or even the second. Being banned only 3 days in the Scarlet and Violet OU, Flutter Mane easily cemented itself in Ubers as one of the best special attackers, one of the best special wall breakers, and even one of the best checks to itself. Flutter Mane's main sets are all of its sets. Specs is able to hit Koraidon, Skeletor, Great Tusk, Corviknight, Blissey, Cyclizar, and way more. The Calm Mind set can set up and clean up Miraidon, Toxapex, Iron Treads, and Oko Tinglu after one Calm Mind and Terra Fairy. And hell, it can even run Assault Vest as a check to not just itself but other special attackers like Chi-Yu, Iron Bundle, Iron Moth, Espathra, and Miraidon. It is easily the best Pokemon in the tier, tied with Miraidon and Koraidon, and is a staple and anchor of the Ubers metagame. And I don't think I should have to explain why it's banned from OU. I mean, just look at it. So yeah, I guess that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If I got anything wrong, please flame me in the comments over it. I'm